Hello, this is Kelsey, and I'm going to be reviewing the Group 6A PowerPoint presentation on PTSD related to the military population. So I thought the presentation overall was wonderful. It was visually enticing. The information was great. The structure of the interview was great. It sounded like everyone had a good shared amount of time speaking and was really knowledgeable on the information that they were sharing. The information itself that was shared was really great. I found it to be really intriguing. I thought that some of it really made sense, and then some of it was kind of confusing or made a full circle for me. So part of the information that was shared at the beginning when discussing the trauma related to military was that there's this belief that there's an overdiagnosis of PTSD and that this reduces the manpower in the service and just impacts this and has a trickle effect for military personnel, and that people are not receiving services, due to this stigma and this fear, this shame, this guilt. And so for me, I actually worked with the military population as a clinician providing different assessments. I worked on NAS Pensacola when there was a terrorist attack and went TAD or temporary duty assignment over to the schoolhouse that the shooting had been at and worked solely with their victims. So I have a little bit of background information on it. And I think that sometimes in working with the military, we saw people that didn't believe they actually had PTSD when maybe they did, or they had acute stress and they didn't think they did because they were comparing themselves to others who had that firsthand experience. So they're like, oh, it wasn't as bad for me, even though they were having some of those side effects still. Later on in the PowerPoint, it was really interesting because then the treatments talked about how they wanted to use SSRIs, yet this can also disqualify people from their certain rates. So it makes them not want to seek services, which goes back to that stigma of like, I'm not going to seek services because if I do, I'm going to be disqualified from my rate. And then these people are then putting in their heads that there's this overdiagnosis and that there's this trickle effect if we don't have manpower and so forth. And so I think it's a really interesting how all of these different things tied together and those connections that were made throughout this PowerPoint presentation. I really loved, again, just the structure of this presentation and all of this information and how it was shared and portrayed to everyone. And it made me really inquisitive on how to get better at helping military population with their mental health, because as it was seen, throughout their PowerPoint presentation, their military needs to build that trust. They need to maybe have, like they had said in their presentation, the extra sessions to build that trust and that rapport. And they need that longer term help sometimes because that PTSD has really set in for them. Whereas military providers are only given 12 sessions, and mental health providers, like active duty mental health providers, are so overbooked and they're so sparse in the military that they don't have enough time to sit and build the trust and go through all of these screenings and really do these things. So it really becomes this, wow, we have all of this wonderful information as was shared, but how do we actually make it work and fit this population? So I think that, again, the information shared, everything was really great. And I would love to see more information on what this group had researched and anything else that maybe they had found that couldn't be shared in their PowerPoint, as I find this population very intriguing and overall thought that they did a wonderful job.